Hi, everyone. I'm Pamela Deason, Product Marketing Manager for DevOps at Broadcom. We are really excited to share with you a brand new capability from our Test Data Manager product. This is a synthetic image generation capability, which has a lot of potential business use cases for OCR testing. And today, Satya Mohanty, Client Services Consultant for Test Data Manager, is actually going to give us a quick demo of this capability that can actually be used for synthetically generating check images. Now over to you, Satya.
Thank you very much, Pam. And hello, everyone. This is Satya Mohanty. I'm a solution engineer with Broadcom, and I work in the app dev space. And today, as Pam was saying, I'm going to do a quick demo and intro of our brand new capability for synthetic image generation. It has got a lot of uses around generating check images, around driver's license, around any other kinds of image that you might need for doing OCR testing or for doing application testing through OCR. In today's demo and session today, we are going to discuss how are we going to generate the check images. Now, the way we do that is it's basically in two parts. The first part of the process is to design the check image that we want to create and generate multiple copies out of it synthetically. And the second part of it is actually using TDM to create those check images. Now, as part of the first section of this workflow, the first thing that we do, as with any other synthetic data generation capability in TDM, is we first register the object. Right? That is always the first step. Now, as part of the object registration, as you have seen, this is our TDM landing page. And I am on the TDM version 1.4. And this capability is present in the TDM version 4.11.1.4 and beyond, right? So on the welcome page of TDM, under the data generator section, we of course have the section for objects and object registration. So we can go into the objects once we have selected the right context for the project. When we go into the objects, we would then be able to register an object. So we click on object registration. Here on the drop down, we are going to select an image as an object that we want to register. So you select the image and we give it a relevant name. So let's call it check images. And then we drag and drop or we browse to the location where we have the check image. So this is a sample check image, which I have downloaded off the internet just for doing my demo. And when I import that check image, the import is complete of the check image, and then I can register. Now, once the check image has been registered, I can then go in and then model my check image. Now, this was the check image that we have seen, and probably what I should have started off with saying is, hey, you know what, this is the sample or the example for check image on which we want to create multiple copies out of it with a relevant date, a relevant pay to a dollar amount in numbers, a dollar amount in words, a memo, a signature, or even an account number and a routing number, so on and so forth. What makes a check look like a check, right? So for doing all of that, the starting point in this is, of course, is the blank check image that I downloaded off the internet. And then that is the one that we registered. And that shows up on the TDM object detail menu where we model how do we want to introduce subject images to make this check look like a real check for doing your OCR testing, right? So for doing that, the first thing is we would add a data field. So we click on add a data field and we'll have two options. The first one is to add text. The second one is to add an image. So in the case of most of these fields, you will of course be needing to introduce text in there. But in some cases, we'll also have of course images, and specifically in the case where, let's say you've got a driver's license, right? You need to create some fake driver licenses in an application for doing some application testing, or let's say you've got a memo or you've got a contract document, right, which you might want to create synthetically. You can do all of those are valid business use cases for this particular capability. And that is when you would see those other examples when you might use an image, for example, to replace a fake image, rather a real image with a fake image from TDM. That is when you would use images. But in this particular example, most of this will be belonging to text fields, right? So I'm going to introduce a text field. So that lets me select a box which I can drag onto the appropriate place where I want to create that particular text. In this case, for the date field, I can, of course, size it the way I want it. Again, just to re-emphasize, this is the first part of a two-stage process where we design or model our image, and then we use TDM to generate the images, right? So we are in the first part, which is modeling our check image. So in this case, I've introduced a date field, and this shows up here at the bottom. To make sure that we remember what this was, I can give it an appropriate name as well. Let's say I'm going to call it as check date. Here we have some cool capabilities. You can directly resize it from here, or you can resize it from giving the different height and width. You can see that the type here was text. As part of the value, you can give it a default value to start off with, so that when we go into creating a generator meta function for this particular field that the TDM will generate for you, TDM knows what type of field, and we will know what type of field and what rules to basically apply here. Right? So for example, for date, I'm going to say 01/01/2024. And of course, I can select a font type as well. We have got multiple fonts that we can select. I'll keep it as default. You can change the size. You can change the color of the font, right? And you can also change the background of the font as well. Behind the particular font, what is the background that you want to see here as part of a check image. And once that is done, you can move on to the next one. The next one, I'm going to add another data field for the pay to. So I'm going to introduce another text field. I will move it to the appropriate location, resize it, and then here I'm going to give it a relevant name again, which is the pay to. And here as well, I'm going to give it a default value. Let's say I'm going to say this is for Satya Mukherjee. Right, I'm going to keep all the background colors and everything as default. Now, the third field which I'm going to add in here as part of my modeling would be the amount in dollars. Right, so I'm going to move it over again to the appropriate section and then size it so it is in the right box and give it amount in dollars, or rather maybe amount in numbers. That would probably make more sense. And I can give it a default value. Let's say call it, I'll give myself $1,000. And the next one which I'm going to add is another data field for the amount in words. So I'm going to move it here, resize it, give it a particular name and call it amount in words. I will say, as an example, 1,000 only, right? I'll probably space it out. All right. And then I'm going to introduce, well, as you can see here, this one came little bit to the top, so I can again move this slightly so that it centers itself appropriately. I can move it down a little bit more, centers appropriately. All right, there you go. And I can center this one as well. There you go, right? And I'm going to introduce a new field for the memo, which is going to be right here. And I'm going to say this is a memo field for which we want to also give in a default value. And I'm going to say the default value for this is demo memo. That sounded interesting. And then I'm going to introduce maybe a signature, right? So it could just here, in case I needed to, this could be an image, right? An example of an image. So if you have an image of a signature, you of course then can just put that in here, or in this case, for my demo, I'm just going to type my name in here again. And see that this is for the signature field. and size it and give it a default value. All right. So that is basically our modeling done, right? So we've completed the first part of this, which is we have imported a sample check image. We have assigned appropriate text and image characters and elements where we need it to for TDM to understand and apply synthetic data generation meta functions to create this sample check image or any other image for doing a OCR testing, right? So when we save this, the object is now saved. Now, once the object is saved, I can go back into the object context or object menu, select the particular object that we just registered and modified, and we can say create a generator. We give it a name. So check image demo 1 and demo and db type general is fine, and we save it, right? So this is the generator which got created. Now if you go into the generator and you select the tables and you add a row, you would see the samples that we already introduced are showing up over here, right? The date that we gave it as a field type, same thing for dollar amount and dollar amount in text, as well as the examples, right? So all of that is basically showing up here. So what we can do here is another interesting capability that we have is we also have the ability to rotate a particular check image a certain number of degrees. Let's say you want to test a scenario where a check image is scanned in at 90 degrees or at 45 degrees or at odd angles, right? That's an important part of a OCR testing, right? So when you give a certain degree of rotation, the check images which is going to get created, they will be rotated at those angles. So you can even test those odd scenarios where someone, a user or a customer, has scanned their check images at odd angles. Right? You can do all of that testing as well using this rotation field. Now, apart from that, right, so we can, of course, assign a default meta function to the date, to a dollar amount, to a dollar amount text, an image, a memo, and a name. So the only change which I'm going to do here, I'm going to keep all the rest the same because, again, this is not a demo for synthetic data generation, but primarily for check image generation. So I'm going to keep it simple with all the other fields. I keep the dates as they are, so on and so forth. And I'm just going to change the pay to a data generation meta function, right? So I'm going to, let's say, call a list of values function for basically doing that. So if I collapse all of the meta functions and I go back into the list of values and I say that I'm going to create a random list of values from a seed list. And let's say I'm going to use a full name seed list or a name seed list rather. Right. And I'm going to say I'm going to use the seed column value as 1. I do not want any percentage nulls. And I'm going to validate. And maybe I'm also going to put in a last name over here as well, so that both of them show up. I'm going to say here that this will be the surname function and see if that is able to pick it up. Right, so you can see it's given it a name, Franz Chaudhary, as a sample name, and I can do an insert. So once that is done, I've set up a data generation rule and all the others I've kept it as default for purposes of this demo. I can then go ahead and publish it. I can say I want to generate the data out into a file. I select a file type as an image. I say I'm going to create 10 copies of the checks, and I can click on publish. So now that the submit request has completed, I can go into the submitted request and I can go into my generators, and this check image generation has completed. And as you remember, as part of the request, what I had done is I had asked TDM to generate 10 check images. So I can download that and show you that now the check images are generated. So we have got a first name, a full name, we've got a date, we've got a dollar amount, we've got a memo and signatures and so on and so forth, right? And the same can also be exposed as a self-service style. So if you wanted to expose this particular generator as a self-service style, you can do it very easily as well. And once that is done, a check image generation tile will get created. You can make a new request and you can say default values for how many images do you want to create. In this case, let's say I want to say 20, but not 120, which I could though. But let's just say 19 images, right? And then I can do a next and I can request, right? So when they do that, that will also submit a self-service job, which is now completed. And I can download the output from here. And when I look at this, now I've got 19 check images, right? So that was our demo today for check image generation with Broadcom TDM. This new capability has been introduced in the product from 4.11.1.4 patch release and beyond. And please do feel free to use this capability. I think it's really interesting, really cool. We expect all kinds of OCR testing, check images, and driver licenses and so on and so forth. All of those different use cases can now be synthetically created using TDM. And looking forward to share more such videos with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing with us, Satya. And for all the viewers, I hope you found this helpful. And I'm sure we'll be back soon with additional best practices for our Test Data Manager product. Thank you.